thank you for giving me this opportunity to teach. I want to appreciate the center. I want to appreciate the university for giving me the opportunity to handle this course. This morning, what we are treating is we want to talk briefly about qualitative research. Qualitative research. Let me start this class by referring to one interesting quotation that I often use, especially when I'm teaching qualitative research. And that quotation is from Albert Einstein, who said, "Not all things that can be counted count, and not all things that can't can be counted." I take that quotation again. Not all things that can be counted can't, and not all things that can't can be counted. For several decades, quantitative research has dominated the field of science. And so, many a times, anything that does not go in science way, or that does not go in quantitative way, is claimed not to be scientific. And that is what Albert Einstein is just trying to say, that it is not everything that we can count that actually counts. We can count the number of stones on the field, but do they really count? We can count the number of trees that we can see at sites, but do they really count? Do they really matter? And there are a lot of things that are very important, but cannot be counted. What are we just trying to say is that everything is not about counting. It's not about science. It's not about, it's not about, don't let me say it's not about science. It's not about statistics. There are so many things that cannot be subjected to statistics, but then they are also very, very important, especially when we are dealing with human beings. So, and that is what brings about the tradition of qualitative research. So let me move on. We'll discuss that more later. So what is qualitative research? It is just a systematic inquiry which seeks to build. Yes.
Prof, sir. Please, sir.
Yes, sir.
Please make it full screen, sir.
Huh?
The slide, make your slides full screen, sir.
Okay. I'll do that now.
Thank you, sir.
I will do that now. It means that I will share and then share again, please. What am I trying to say? Qualitative research is a system of inquiry that seeks to build a holistic and large narrative. You see, what we are saying is that qualitative research is not about number. It is about understanding the depth. It's about building a holistic understanding of an event, rather than subjecting phenomena to few dependent and independent variables. More so that qualitative research is interested in depth and not in statistics, not in P is less than or equal to 0.05, which is the usual language of quantitative. Qualitative research takes place in natural settings, and it employs different techniques in understanding the phenomenon. It can combine observation, interviews, document review. There are so many methods of data collection in qualitative research. So then is primarily inductive. Inductive meaning that qualitative research is open to emerging data. It's not restricted to, in quantitative, quantitative will restrict researchers to few variables. You deal with few variables. And that is what you pursue, that is what you investigate, and that is what you analyze and write your report. But in qualitative, it's open to all sorts of data and information that is coming in. So it is primarily inductive. And then what this means is that the data and meaning always emerge originally from the research context. Is not a priori determined. In quantitative, you a priori determine the variables you want to deal with. But in qualitative, you avoid that. There are so many assumptions about qualitative. But let us just speak about maybe one or two of them. One is that one of the basic assumptions is that qualitative is holistic. It has holistic view of phenomena. What are we trying to say is that once you are investigating a particular phenomenon, you use all available means to investigate, all available information are taken in, and all strategies that can be used. So it's holistic. It deals with every phenomenon holistically when investigating. So just like what I said, that reducing complex phenomena into few interdependent or dependent variables is not acceptable with qualitative. And the second important assumption is that investigators research in nature. We are researching in nature. Researchers do not impose their assumptions, limitations, delimitations, or definitions on the research process. But you are open because you are researching in nature. The data emerge naturally. The information emerge naturally, and the interpretations is based on the context. And that is why you see, for instance, we might collect the same data in different contexts, and that same data has different meaning for you. If you find that a man is wearing wrapper among the Yorubas, the society will interpret it in a different way because wrapper is not part of our dressing. But if an Yoruba man wear the same wrapper, Yoruba man wear a wrapper, Yoruba man wear a wrapper, among the Yorubas, you interpret it to mean that that person, maybe there is a problem upstairs. Maybe the person has been anyway. Even in our culture, it could be interpreted to mean that, oh, maybe the wife has given love portion, and so he doesn't know what he's doing again. He's just has become a mumu person, something like that. But when an Yoruba man wear wrapper, it is a special celebration, a special occasion. So, and it is the same action, but different interpretation because of the context. So collecting such data, if you are collecting data, you are now looking at, you see, the interpretation of a man that wear a wrapper among Yorubas would then be different from that among the Yoruba. And that is why we say that reality exists with the subject, the way the subject sees it. So the interpretation of the data must be based on the context, not on the professional expertise of the researcher. That is what qualitative, the assumption of qualitative research. So let's discuss it. Qualitative, quantitative, and looking at principles of science. That is where qualitative and quantitative differ in their orientation and in the strategy. We have four major principles of science, and which strictly guides quantitative research, and that is issue of objectivity, universalism, empiricism, generalizability. These are sacrosanct to science. And so in quantitative research, these are very sacrosanct. We must have heard of these principles before, that everything, the process must be objective. You don't meddle with the process. You don't influence the process. You allow objectivity. That is when it is science. And so quantitative research follows this tradition. But qualitative queries objectivity on the ground that, one, the object of science, the object of study in science is different from the object of study in social sciences. The object of study in social sciences is human being. The object of study in core science are not human being. Even when you are studying human, you are something in human behavior. Or maybe you are studying rocks, you are studying leaves, you are studying trees, you are studying air, you are studying lights, and so on and so forth. You are mixing some chemicals together, so you can be objective because you can dissociate yourself from the process. For instance, I often say it in my secondary school in chemistry, we were taught that when you put iodine into starch, it will give you blue-black color. Your emotion cannot affect it. Your height cannot affect it. The location where you do it does not matter. Anywhere you do it, you get that. You can be objective because you can dissociate yourself from the process. But how do you dissociate yourself as a human being from the human being you are studying? Because in qualitative research and especially in social science and qualitative research try to look at human behavior. And so as social science study, or even sometimes in science, we want to delve into that as well, because you have produced an equipment, you want to know how people will react to it, how people will accept it. You have just provided, produced a drug, and it is already sure that this drug is working, but you want to see how people will react, what people will be the complaints of people about this drug, what will be. So Even in science, we delve into that, in core science, delve into that a bit. And what we are doing, this qualitative is just trying to say is that the moment you are interested in human behavior, human attitude, then the principles of science cannot hold. Why? You cannot be objective because you are a human being and you are studying human being. That is why it is difficult to be objective. You have emotion. Human beings you are studying also have emotion. So that will make objectivity difficult. And so another thing is universalism. Universalism. That's the principle of science. And quantitative also seeks to follow this, that is universal principle. You use the universal principle. In science, we say that if one principle is, for instance, I'm not a physician, I'm a social scientist, but let me delve a bit into um, what do I call layman knowledge that I have. If you want to connect electricity, for instance, you know that you take your red cable, you take your black cable, and you take the neutral, connect it to the power source, then put your plug and put the bulb. You are going to get electricity. Do it anywhere in the world. Do it in Australia, in US, in Britain, in Nigeria. It's the same principle. It's universal principle. So it follows the same rule anywhere in the world. But qualitative research is saying that you cannot follow universalism. You cannot use universal principle. I've just talked about differences in culture now. That a Yoruba man wear wrapper, people will be suspecting that that person is having some mental problem. The same wrapper and Yoruba man will wear it, and people will begin to hail him. What is happening today? Oh, today must be special, and so on. That is the culture. So, can you then use universal principle to study it and to conduct a study on that? So, universal principle will not work when it comes to a human being. And this is part of what qualitative research is trying to emphasize. That, and that's why it rejects the scientific principle and scientific methods in studying human being. The human being is not like animal that we study. When you put a chicken in the cage and you are feeding the chicken in that cage, as long as you are giving the food, the chicken will remain in that cage for the rest of its life. But you cannot cage a human being. No matter how you satisfy that person, you want to venture out. You want to query, why is this person not allowing me to go out? He will find all means to break this thing. Even those who are put in jails, they break jails at times. So human behavior is very complex and is very dynamic. You cannot compare it to 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 the behavior of viruses, bacteria, and so on. This is what qualitative research is trying to talk about. Otherwise, there has not been a drug to cure anger in a human being. Anger is just subjected to mood. There is not a drug to cure mood swing. So people can change mood. Somebody that you think that is aggressive, oh, if you abuse that man, he will slap you. You can abuse that man and he just laugh and laugh it off. And you begin to wonder what's happening. Maybe some things, maybe a prophet has told him in the morning, they will provoke you, oh, don't fight. Oh. And you will see the person a complete gentleman that day. These are the things. So human behavior is very, very complex. And that is why qualitative research believes that using scientific principle will not allow us to understand. we cannot understand. How will you understand if you don't put yourself in the position of others? And you are talking of objectivity. You are criticizing a group for doing something, but you don't imagine yourself in that same position and see how it will be. For instance, I know that when doctors go on strike, everybody criticize them. They don't know, can't they understand that their job is human life and so on. But when you meet them, you put yourself in their position. There are a lot of things they also suffer. I'm not a medical doctor, but I know they are also exposed to a lot of dangers. Some of them are infected in the process of treating patients, and some of them lose their life in the process. And they will also tell you that life is equal. They also have life. Those patients, they also have their own life. So they need to protect themselves first before. So if you put yourself in their position, then you might have a different opinion. So that is what qualitative is trying to say, that therefore, the principle of science needs to be rejected, and we need to look at another way of investigating phenomena when it comes to understanding human behavior and attitude. The other principle is empiricism. That before we can do something scientific, it must be empirical. What does this mean? Empiricism means that we must be able to perceive this through our sense organs. Either we are able to see, touch, smell, hear, all our sense organs. We must be able to feel it. So, and that is why many things that the science will study are empirical. So, we can either touch, feel, and so on, taste, and so on. But how do you see human behavior? For instance, can you touch anger? Can you smell anger? You can only see the manifestation, but you cannot see that particular maybe phenomenon we call anger. You cannot touch it, you cannot see it, you cannot smell it, and yet you want to study it. Attitude, you only see the manifestation. You cannot take attitude to the lab and begin to put all these different kinds of do different kinds of experiment on it. So, and yet you need to study, we need to study it. When you are studying human being, you are studying attitude. So that's why qualitative says that these are the things we deal with, and they are linked. And even as a core scientist, invention of your of your invention, these are the things that you study, that you cannot study them using scientific principle, which quantitative research is based on. But we need qualitative. And the last but not the least principle as a liability, ability to generalize. We must be able to generalize. This is scientific principle, but qualitative believes that generalizability is not even needed, but we need specificity. So, otherwise, when you carry out a study like I told you the other time, that the principles for tapping lights is the same all over the world. Take your red cable, your black, and your yellow, which is neutral. Connect them to the power source, and then try to link it to, try to put your bulb. You will get light, and it's the same. So you can generalize that principle because it is universal. But how do you generalize your findings among human beings with regards to human behavior? Otherwise, for instance, can you say that because Ijesha people likes pounded yam, Ijesha people are Yorubas, therefore all Yorubas likes pounded yam? That would be a fallacy. You cannot go that way because you cannot generalize when it comes to human behavior or human attitude. Oh, Kokore is a special choice meal among the Ijebus. Ijebus are Yorubas. Therefore, all Yorubas like Ikokore. That will also be a fallacy because we are speaking about human behavior. But we can say that when you take red, black, and yellow cable, connect it to power source, and put your bulb, you will get light. And that is what we can generalize all over the world. So it doesn't matter where you do it. So you can generalize that findings. So generalizability in studying human behavior, human attitude is very, very limited. And that is why qualitative believes that the principle of science cannot be relied upon to study human being, to study human behavior. And so there is need for a different technique to do that. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to move forward. It's not, okay. Okay. There are perspectives in designing qualitative research. We understand now that it doesn't follow the principle of science. And therefore, in designing, it is very, very flexible. I say flexible because you know that when you are conducting quantitative research, it's either you are doing experiment or you are using questionnaire. Before you go to the field, your questionnaire is cast in stone. You cannot get to the field and say, okay, I should have added this question, and you had it. Oh, I should have removed this question. After all, it's not really relevant. Not many people are really responding to it, and you remove it. You can't do that in quantitative. The qualitative permits all that. That's why we say it's very flexible. And so there are two ways we can design qualitative research when we want to conduct it. We can use the funnel approach. You have many questions while you are going to the field, but you narrow those questions into fewer ones that you are really interested in. Have you ever heard that, for instance, when you are designing instruments in qualitative, we call some questions icebreaker. Icebreaker are like questions that are not, you don't really need them, but you want to use those questions to get into the main issue. You want to use those questions to get yourself, to warm yourself into the heart of the people, to get yourself familiarized with the people, and to get your research uh, subjects speaking, participating in the study. Those are what we call icebreaker. In quantitative, you don't need that. You go straight to the point. So you can use funnel approach. You have so many questions, but you have one, two, or three specific ones that you are really interested in that you want to delve into. So when you are designing, you can have those so many questions. You go to the field with them. You want to ask somebody about family planning usage. You are starting from um, say family, maybe relationship issue. You are starting from issue of general relationship between husband and wife, between um, lovers, and so on. You are not going directly to the issue of family planning. So that is funnel approach in designing. So you have general research questions, which you start with. Then you are now delving into specific issues. That's you are using funnel approach. Then you can also have modify analytic inductive approach. And that is just inverted funnel. You are starting from just one question, and you are, at the end of the day, you are asking so many other questions. For instance, if you want to conduct a study that you do not really understand what is bearing, what questions and which questions are you to ask? You can start from what you know to what you don't know. Start from general questions, and as the process continues, then you begin to delve into what you don't know. You bring out questions from responses. And that is why in qualitative, you see that when we design qualitative instruments, you will see a lot of probe questions. Probe, probe for this. When this is not mentioned, when you are interested in that area, but people are not really speaking along that area, yes, you can probe. And that's why we say it is very flexible. Very flexible. It's not rigid. The instrument is not cast in stone. And that is why, even in qualitative, we when you see, they will say guide. We call all our instruments guide. That is, this is just to guide you. You are not restricted to only these questions. So when you see, we will say focus group discussion guide, interview guide, seasonal map guide, and so on. Any instrument you design, you end it with guide, meaning that as you are going to the field, this instrument is just to guide your thought, to guide you the questions. You must ask all the questions in that instrument, but you can ask far more questions than what you have. So you are permitted. The questionnaire, when it is 20 questions on the instrument, you dare not ask less than 20 questions or ask more than 20 questions. Is straight jacket, passing to straight. Quantitative also restrict your respondents to few answers, options. You pick A or B or C or D or E or whatever. Even when there are few open-ended questions, you are restricted. You are given maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4 lines to express yourself. And there might be a lot of information that that person wants to give, but quantitative will not allow that. I will round up in the few minutes so that in the next few minutes so that people can ask questions. Maybe the last 10 questions, the last 10 minutes. I know I have like 17 minutes now. So that is qualitative. And there are so many, before I go into this design, let me talk about the
Please unmute, sir.
I didn't know I didn't know how I muted myself. Okay. Sorry. When have I muted myself? So that I can
I think you just, the sentence you were saying was just for a few seconds. You didn't miss
okay,
much.
okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So I was trying to say that um there are so many methods of data collection in quantitative and in qualitative. In quantitative, by the time you talk about questionnaire experimentation, then I don't know, sometimes you also use observation, in which case you record like those who study weather. So they use observation and they have their instrument to take the data and so on. But in qualitative, there are numerous techniques for data collection and many more are developing. I know the popular ones that people know are this FGD, KII, IDI, but there are so many numerous techniques that can be used to collect data in qualitative. I've just mentioned the three that are popularly known, but there are others, like you talk of seasonal maps, you talk of Venn diagram, you talk of matrices technique, you talk of nominal group technique, you talk of vignettes, and so many others. You talk of even uh, um, panel discussion, so numerous. If you can search, we thought of, we can also talk of RRA techniques, rapid, something rapid assessment. There are so many methods or CLA technique or PLA, participatory learning and action. So technique, so many techniques to collect data in qualitative. But let me limit us to the three that are popularly known. You can explore further to look at many other techniques depending on the situation that uh, warrant. And there are times when you use them, you cannot just use them haphazardly. Some people, even there are builds of technique. Because you know FGD, you think that it is just in every study that you do FGD, or that it is in every study that you do KII or IDI. So it depends on your interest and what you are looking for. And that is what will determine the techniques for data collection. But generally, when you talk of FGD, that is when you are interviewing a group of people together at the same time. So that's focus group techniques of data collection. You have minimum of 6, maximum of 12 individuals sitting down in a round table discussion. The moderator, person asking the question, and a note taker who is taking notes is in the session. The session is also recorded, and as he's throwing the question, people are answering one after the other. The technique of how to do that is not what we can discuss here now within the short time, but I just want you to know that there is focus group discussion. Then there is a key informant interview and there is in-depth interview. So then when do you use FGD? When do you use, okay, let me discuss. Key informant interview is when you are actually, when we say key informant, key, that word key informant has already suggests what it is. That is, there are some people that are key to the study. They have special knowledge, they possess special knowledge, and you need to about the phenomenon you are studying. That is when they become key informants. In-depth interview, yes, these are research subjects that are involved. I mean, they also have knowledge, but their knowledge is not special. It's a knowledge that is generally known among people of that category. For instance, if I want to interview women with, with less than 2-year-olds baby, women with less than 2-year-olds baby, they are numerous, and the knowledge of one may not be so sacrosanct to the extent that we person. So we can select anyone. This is just among this category of women. This is what we call IDI. But when we talk of KII, for instance, there is a medical officer who is in family planning clinic. And our interest in this study is about family planning. And we are asking people, women, we are asking men, we are asking. So why the women we might be conducting in-depth interview for the women, asking them questions about their knowledge, their difficulties, their perception about specific family planning method, knowledge of the health workers as key informants. Because they are coming from the angle, they may also be family planning users, but they are coming from the angle of a professional. Some special knowledge that general people may not have. And that is why they are called key informants. And so you cannot say that you use key informants where you're supposed to use in-depth interview, or you claim to use in-depth interview where you're supposed to use key informant. Likewise, FGD can only be used when you need community level information and not individual level information. And if you look at it, you will see that the way the questions are structured in all these different data collection techniques are different. For instance, when you are asking questions in FGD, you don't ask direct question from the participants. For instance, I want to ask questions on what family planning methods do people use. If I want to ask in IDI, I would rather frame it to say that, what family planning methods do you use? Do you use? Because I'm asking you as an individual who falls into my category, and I expect you to have that experience. If I want to ask a key informant, I will ask him or her, what family planning methods do people mostly use in this community? Based on his or her professional experience, I want to know, because they are the family planning clinic and they are the ones that administer it. They have the knowledge of what people do and so on. And if I want to frame it in FGD also, I will ask, what are the common family planning methods that women use in this community? I cannot be asking LGD participants, what family planning method do you use? Participant A, tell us the family planning methods that you use. These are private information that people will not want to release. And you are asking group of people. So, and that is why the technique. So that's why we say, for you to say you want to use LGD, it means that what you need is community level or group level information and not individual level information. So we must be aware that we cannot use them indiscriminately. Oh, my time is gone. So just for a mention, these are the design techniques. Case study, we have case study design. We have, we have ethnography design. We cannot be discussing this because I want you to ask questions. We have phenomenological design. We have grounded theory design. We have focus group design. Focus group can be a design and can be a method of data collection. Then we have historical research design in qualitative. So thank you. Please, over for questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. This is so comprehensive. We felt as if you held our hands like babies and you were gradually leading us through the way. Thank you very much, sir. And I think this is very relatable. And of course, some informations and some comments in the chat, and those who have chatted us privately also indicates that people have really, really learned one thing or the other. So to not take our time, if you like to ask the questions, so please you can just use the raise hand icon on your Zoom so that I can call you, so that you can ask your question. So
And
okay, thank you very much. We have Abdul. Oh, Prof, ma. Yes, ma.
Yeah.
Yes, there are a few questions in the chat box, and maybe we can restart also. Thank you. After the call, after the hand raised up, the questions in the chat box are really, really great questions. Thank you. Over.
All right, thank you, ma. Okay, ma. So Abdul Hamid, you can unmute and ask your question, but please make it as brief as possible.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Prof, and good morning, the other participant. I'm Abdulhamid Abdullahi from Ahmed Bello University, Zaria. It's very good. I enjoyed the session very much, and I will keep tab with the development. My question is, I want the professor to give us his candid opinion. Does he think that we should now tilt our research methods to qualitative at the level of the undergraduate, considering the population and then considering the local issues that we have surrounding us in this country, Nigeria? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hamidu, you can, yeah, thank you. Well, sir, you will answer the question together with this. Mrs. Komalafe asked in the chat box that why is qualitative approach not commonly used in undergraduate studies? I think the questions are kind of interwoven. So I may respond to that.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just say, like when I started the class, I said that quantitative approach has dominated the field of science for so long. And many people believe that qualitative is not scientific. Oh, it's not scientific. How can you, for instance, issue of representativeness? Oh, you want to understand something about you just pick 5, 6 people. How will that be representative? These are a lot of questions that have been asked. But you know, it is just because of that biasness that many people don't do qualitative. But I want to say that qualitative is as valid as quantitative because it depends on what you are looking for. Sometimes you need to be subjective to understand something. So if we always think that it is this objectivity, then we'll miss out some things. And so like in my department, the orientation is already changed. Even for PhD, we do purely qualitative. I'm not saying it is only qualitative that we do, but you can choose to do purely qualitative, right from undergraduate to PhD level in my department. And you can also, not only in my department, everywhere in the thing is changing. People begin to realize that this aspect we always jettison is also very crucial and is very important, because that's why when we want to implement some things, especially with human beings, we have a lot of difficulties. Oh, we find P is less than or equal 0.05. And so what? What then follows? Oh, how then do we go about it? So science can help us to a level, but it cannot unravel everything when it comes to human being, especially when you behavior, human understanding. So therefore, I am not saying jettison quantitative, that everybody should now be doing qualitative, because both of them have their strengths and they have their weaknesses. So now it depends on the issue we are investigating. You can do purely qualitative study, you can do purely quantitative study, and you can do a mixed method study. This is just a 1 hour class. So we are unable, we cannot delve into so many of those dynamics.
Yes,
So
sir.
it is
Thank
not
you, sir.
out of place if you want to use purely qualitative.
Thank you very
And
much, sir. Yes, sir.
begin to take it. Thank you. Yeah. I hope
Yes, sir.
I've
Thank you,
answered
sir.
that.
Yes, and I think you also kind of responded to the next question in the chat, which is by Abidoye and Olua, that research is being presented at conferences. Are they less quantitative, scientific research, or more interdisciplinary? You've already, I think your response kind of also answered that question. So, however, we
Yeah.
have another one here by Opeyemi Olani, which says,
Okay.
in conducting a pivot study among a group, is it better to start with the aggregate and then drill down to the individual, or the other way around? So that is by Opeyemi Olani. And then, okay, so I want to see if there's any other. Okay, yes. All right, sir. Thank you, sir. I think that's the, we have just one question after that. And the question is, how do you
Yes.
analyze qualitative research? So,
Oh, okay. I will answer both together. Well, let me say that the issue you are investigating will determine how you design your study. If the issue you are investigating is a sensitive matter, for instance, you want to interview persons who are HIV positive, and because of the stigmatization, discrimination, and so on, it's a sensitive thing. You don't expect those people to just, the moment you start talking and they start following, they start the conversation, enter into the conversation in earnest with you. There will be this level of reluctance, trying to push back, and so on. And you need the information. So you need to get into their heart. You need to, and that is what will determine how you design your study. The issue. So it is not, there is no straightforward answer here to say, oh, yes, you go this way or you go that way. And that's why I said the issue you are investigating will be, you see, when you are investigating that, you are interviewing HIV positive, it's different from when you are interviewing maybe recently graduated students in a university. You want to hear their view about the university where they have graduated, what are they doing. So these are the things that people, the moment you, whether they know you or they don't know you, they are ready to flow into the discussion at any slightest opportunity of asking questions. Because it's not sensitive, they are feel free. Some of them are even happy to say it, whether it is positive or negative or whatever. So they are anxious to give the information or before you even start asking questions. Unlike when the issue is about something that is sensitive. You want to investigate, you ask people questions about extramarital affairs. So this is another sensitive issue. And you expect people, even those who have additional 3, 4, 5 women outside their wife, you expect them to start with denial. Oh, to have this holy attitude and so on. So there is a way you get into the discussion. So the issue will determine whether you the kind of design that you take. That's what I will the way I will answer that question for now. And for analysis, analysis of qualitative data is a different ball game and is also very interesting. Analysis, there are a lot of software for analysis. But I've always been telling people that software is just a software. It cannot think for itself. It's just like when you are using Stata or SPSS to analyze quantitative data. If you say that Stata should give you the mean of sex, which is categorical variable, Stata will give you a value. You are now the one that we know, that we need to interpret. Is this value really reasonable? Does it have meaning? So, that's that. So, in analyzing qualitative data, there are a lot of softwares and there are a lot of techniques for analyzing. Just as we have percentages, we have we can use diagrams like pie charts. We can use mean, median, mode. We can use in quantitative, we can use logistic regression and so on and so forth. Also in qualitative, we have different kinds of analysis. We have discourse analysis. We have content analysis, which many people usually different. We have matrixological analysis. We have different forms of analysis that we can do with the software. But that one needs to be learned, and we need to also understand the data before we do analysis. So it is not what we can demonstrate today, but just let me say that there are also techniques for analysis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. This is helpful. This is this is really, really exciting. And somehow you responded to many other questions in the process of answering that question. And thank you, sir. I want to apologize to all participants that we went beyond the allotted time by 6 minutes. Usually we end on the hour, and that is at 9. But then I want to believe that you will agree with me that it has every minute spent has been worth it. So I want to say thank you to Professor Aransiola, and then we have with us the Executive Director of the Central Office of Research, Professor Morenike Upong. She's here, and I would like her to probably just say a closing statement before we round up. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, coordinator of the program, and thank you so much, Professor Aransiola, for making this qualitative 001, not 101, 001. I enjoyed learning, despite my assumption that I understood this topic. Thanks for every single participant that is here. Just to note that I've seen a lot of questions about qualitative analysis. There is a whole session and that is dedicated to qualitative analysis in the program. That will be taken by Professor Payemi. I call her Payemi. She has a surname. I apologize. She's my aburo, not little. She's a big woman. And there is also a session that will be that is dedicated to reporting quantitative and reporting qualitative. I think we also have something on mixed method. So you do have time to acquire skills and knowledge. And I think it's a brilliant questions that we heard from Professor Hamidi Abdul, as well as all the respondents, that is looking at the use of qualitative assessment for undergraduate studies. We can shift the dynamics. I think what has held people back is because of the time involved. And to be able to tell, it's a skill. It's not asking questions. Anybody can ask questions, but the skill to explore with qualitative research is a lot more in depth, and that might have kept people away from using this for undergraduate studies. Even we biomedical scientists have already moved towards qualitative studies, a lot because of the complementary play. So thank you for this brilliant session. Thank you for the questions. There's still so much to come. Please stay in touch with us. For those of you that has the link, please keep the link. It's the same link every Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Once again, we apologize for extending this 9 minutes beyond that time. Otherwise, have a wonderful day. God bless you. Have a great weekend. Bye.